I was told not to worry about it. Ole Miss was being respected plenty. But here we have a pollster dropping Ole Miss out of the top 25 after a 63-7 win over an FBS opponent. We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I'm Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, we dive into the Ole Miss versus Kentucky matchup, give the keys. Could we see a return of the quick game, short passes, moving the chains, wearing down the defense, going to side? Could be a real formula to beat the Kentucky Wildcats. We'll also talk about valuing possessions and knowing exactly who you're playing against and what should be a shortened game on Saturday. But first, we start with the ridiculous disrespect from the pollsters, and one in particular. One outlet actually dropped Ole Miss out of their top 25 after a 63-7 win over an FBS opponent. Was it really that one touchdown allowed that did it? It just kind of shows how meaningless some of these polls are becoming and how they no longer can be taken seriously. We'll explain all of that and more right now on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is, and that is the most fun way to follow Ole Miss sports. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Listen, I was told that Ole Miss was being respected appropriately. I was told that there wasn't an axe to grind against Ole Miss. I was told that Ole Miss has taken the next step up. And it took one poll for that to be proven hilariously wrong. And of course, I'm talking about PFS, supposed ball knowers. It's Max Chadwick, who's been on the show. Somebody else has been on the show as well. I forget his name at the moment. Supposed ball numbers talking about the NFL and the college football system and all of that. But they dropped Ole Miss out of their top 25. I don't know why. Was it the one touchdown that was given up by Ole Miss in that game? Or did they expect Ole Miss to score 77 points or 80 points? The fact that Ole Miss kind of struggled a little bit at the beginning of the game and still won it 63-7 actually says more about Ole Miss in a positive light than a negative light. But it doesn't affect anything with the fact that they removed Ole Miss from the rankings altogether. And here's proof of it, just so everybody can see it. This is the bottom of the PFF poll. At the bottom where it says read more PFF college news and analysis, has Ole Miss and the others receiving votes. I guess they got dropped out of there. They were number 23. They are not ranked now. Georgia Tech moved into the poll. SMU moved down for 19. Louisville moved up from 18. Florida State is absolutely in there, and I'm sure Alabama is about 15. This is one of the worst ways that Alabama has looked in 30 years, and they moved like 8 spots. But Ole Miss, they win a game 63-7, and you get dropped out of the poll entirely. See, this is one of those things. Whenever you create a poll like this, and this is one of the reasons that I try not to do it. It's one of the reasons why Locked On is it's a hard thing to do correctly because it is so easy to move your biases into a poll. Nicole Auerbach on the AP poll, I guarantee you did not have Ole Miss ranked, even though that Ole Miss won 63-7. I guarantee that she had SEC teams less than they should be because she has a bias that way. She doesn't take this seriously. She uses the poll as a vehicle for what they're choosing. We'll look at that in just a second. But looking at this thing, it was one of the most disrespectful polls that I've ever seen, period. I was told in the offseason, no, Ole Miss is being respected appropriately. No, Ole Miss has turned a corner to where they're getting respect from everybody. Look, they have a number by their name, even though they're returning so few players, even though it's a really good team. And the players that are on their team were stars elsewhere. Ole Miss has a chance to be really good. Going up to Kentucky this weekend into the SEC, Ole Miss has a chance to be a playoff level team. That team that you saw on the field against Georgia State was immensely talented. And anybody that says we just don't know or that was just Georgia State, they don't know ball. Because what I'm saying has nothing to do with the score. It has nothing to do with Georgia State. It has everything to do with the way that Ole Miss looked in that game and what they were able to do. And I went to a lot of games. I was at the Ole Miss Arkansas State game in 1986 that was 10-10. It was a tie game with the Arkansas State Indians, who at that time were an FCS program. That's below what Ole Miss played on Saturday. I saw Ole Miss in person in 2006 against the Northwestern State Demons have to score a touchdown late to put that game away in a 34-27 type game. They did not score 63 points against that FCS opponent. I don't want to hear this is what you're supposed to do because nobody else is doing it. Ole Miss has scored 60 points against season openers the last 3 years. That's 2023, 2024, and 2025. If it was so easy, everybody would be doing it. That is my point. So it's not just about who you were playing. And everybody says, well, you haven't played anybody yet. We don't know. Nobody else is doing this. Nobody. Ole Miss had a 12-0 roster. They played with their food and lost 3 games. They weren't a 9-3 team. Everybody wants Ole Miss to take a step back off a 9-3. They weren't a 9-3 team. They were a 12-0 team that went 9-3. They can take a step back and finish 10-2 this year off of what the talent says. Ole Miss dropping out of a poll for clicks, engagement, all of that stuff. I get it. It's the world that I live in. But it's still the purest form of disrespect to have Ole Miss in that area. If you look at the other polls, I'm talking, of course, by the SID assistance poll and the non-ball knowers poll, plus Michael Katz. I don't know how I got mixed up with them, but Michael Katz knows plenty of ball. Let's look at the AP poll, the non-ball knowers poll in week 2. Number 1 is Ohio State. LSU moved up, rightfully so. They probably should be up higher than Penn State if we're going to be honest. Miami moved into the top 10 after beating Notre Dame. That's one that makes no sense. Notre Dame hardly moved at all. South Carolina didn't look particularly good. There's a lot of confirmation bias in that game. Arizona State, we'll find out this weekend. Florida is about where they probably should be. Florida State, we don't know how good Alabama is. Alabama could very well be what Florida State was a year ago. Florida State moving up to number 14 off of that win is just off of the name on the logo and the number on the side of the helmets. Michigan at 15, Iowa State at 16, SMU, and then there's Oklahoma, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Tennessee. Tennessee actually looked pretty good. Tennessee should be ranked ahead of Alabama going into this. But that's the non-ball knowers poll of the week. And then we have the SID assistance poll in week 2. Ohio State at number 1. LSU did not jump Georgia in this poll. Texas is somehow still in the top 10. Miami's in there as well. Clemson didn't fall very far. Notre Dame's still in there. Arizona State, we'll find out this weekend. Big game for Mississippi State with a top 10 opponent coming into Davis Wade. South Carolina, like I said, I had my opinion on that. They have Ole Miss about where I think they should be. They had Ole Miss at number 14. The SID assistants are higher on Ole Miss than the non-ball knowers. Tennessee at number 17, that makes sense. And then you have Alabama, and then A&M didn't look great. Oklahoma only scored 35 points on Southern Illinois. We need to talk about that a little bit more as the season goes on, especially with John Mateer throwing for the yards that he threw. We'll see exactly what it looks like. But these polls, they've gotten absolutely hilarious over the last couple of years. People are now using them as vehicles to push their agenda, as opposed to actually ranking the teams, because it doesn't matter. Come the first weekend of November, we're going to switch over to the college football playoff poll, and these polls aren't going to matter at all. So why do they matter right now? Just engagement, just talking points and things like that. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Saturday's game could be a shortened one, and that means that Ole Miss has absolutely to value possessions and points. Failure to do so would play right into Mark Stoops' wheelhouse, and it is the kind of game that Kentucky wants to dictate. What are the keys for the Rebels to avoid that trap and take control? We'll break it all down coming up next. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. You can feel it in the moments you get behind the wheel, the smooth handling, the intuitive controls, the standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's a small detail that makes big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Do us a favor, like and subscribe and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on the audio podcatchers and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keeps all of this free. If you want more than that, you can join the Insiders program in the subtech links down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way to cancel ever. Give it a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is ready for you. Now, this one is pretty interesting to me because it's time to get into the keys of what's going on in this game. And Ole Miss and Kentucky, there are certain things that they're non-negotiables, if we're going to be honest about it. Ole Miss moving the sticks and staying on the field is going to be paramount in this game. Kentucky wants to play a shortened game. When Kentucky and Vanderbilt plays, there could be 7 possessions on offense for both sides. This one's probably going to be closer to 9 or 10, but it normally is around 13. So it's 3 less times that you are likely going to see the ball. So moving the sticks and staying on the field, it's going to be paramount in this shortened game, because the worst thing you can do is go 3 and out, spend 19 seconds, and they drive the ball down the field and take more time off the clock. Even when they go 3 and out and have to punt, it's going to take 2 minutes off the clock. It just is. The way they play football, it's going to take 2 minutes. So if you're taking 15 seconds, it's going to be a problem. Just remember, a couple of years ago, Tennessee won the game, okay? Tennessee won this game, but they had 15 minutes of time of possessions. It was just, instead of quick 3 and outs, it was quick touchdowns. Kentucky was able to hold the ball and get on the other side, but they weren't able to win the game. They actually lost a very close one. Tennessee was explosive enough to win. You need to pay attention to what's going on there. Drive the ball, quick passes, all of that's going to be very important. Second of all, Austin Simmons channeling Matt Corral and throwing short to open up the deep ball in the second half is going to be very important. I think that is very big for Ole Miss. The tight ends and the receivers catching the ball within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage early in the game to make those safeties look forward, to get those guys ready to come forward. So they bite on pump fakes. They bite on double moves. They bite on the run game. This year, Ole Miss should have a run game that they could throw at the Kentucky Wildcats, including Kewan Lacey and Logan Diggs and Damian Taylor. All 3 of those could look similar to 2020. But Austin Simmons channeling that Matt Corral and throwing short early to open up the deep ball later, that's going to be a paramount part of this game. And also play a clean game, as turnovers will have a lot more value in this shortened game that Kentucky wants. And a turnover isn't just turning over the ball via fumble or interception. It's also turning it over on downs, a turnover on downs. You hear that saying. Respect every drive, get every point that you can get. Odds are, if you get 20 points in this game, you are going to win it. You know it's a race to 20, so try to get to that point until you do, essentially, because it is going to be a slog of a game. Now, Lane Kiffin talked about in his Sunday presser that he had been working on the Kentucky Wildcats for about a year. And there's a ton of staffers in there. Nothing's going without. They're just focusing on the Kentucky Wildcats, and they need to, if we're going to be honest about it. Because if you look at what Kentucky does, they play cloud coverage over the top, and they stop the run. And they dare you to throw for explosive plays. Ole Miss fell directly into the trap a year ago. And this isn't a slam on Jaxson Dart or anything like that. But Trey Harris had 11 catches for 175 yards out of about 250 total. And about 40 of that 75 yards other than Trey Harris was on a fourth down heave to Caden Prescorn at the end of the game. It was basically Jaxson Dart to Trey Harris in that game. And there was nothing else. Not a thing else that you can do. Ole Miss has to avoid that trap. And I think they can get there by playing clean, channeling Matt Corral, and basically valuing every possession they get. It should be a really interesting thing. I'm looking forward to see if Ole Miss can actually do this, because if you look at Matt Corral in 2020, he was 24-29, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. That is by far the best game that Ole Miss has had against the Kentucky Wildcats. When you look at Jaxson Dart, about 200 yards in the first game, an interception and a touchdown. And in the second game, he threw for 250, but like I said, there was the heave at the end of the game and the missed field goal and all that. Ole Miss has won 2 out of 3, but there's been 7 games decided by a total. 3 games decided by a total of 7 points. 1 point in the 2020 game, and then 3 in the 22 game, and 3 in last year's game as well. I'm curious to see exactly what happens. I think that Austin is built for this game. It's just a sneaking suspicion thing. I'm leaning towards blowout right now, the way it sits. This is a different team than faced the Kentucky Wildcats a year ago. They do different stuff well. They run the ball better than they did with Henry Parrish at running back a year ago because of the offensive line and all of that stuff. There was a lot of receivers that caught balls in the first game. That's different than the Trey Harris thing when Ole Miss played basically into the trap of Mark Stoops. Listen, and this is pretty simple. Everybody that wants to enjoy a football game, whenever every play that is consistent in your game is to one player, and everybody on the other team knows that you're going to target that one player, and you're not even making really an effort to target anybody else, they're going to take away that player. It doesn't matter how good that player is. They're going to be able to stop it because they don't have to worry about the other players on the field, whether, whoever is playing those positions. Looking at this year, a lot more people are catching the football, which means you're not going to be able to do that, which is going to kind of take away double teams at times. And then if you can run the ball a little bit, I think you're going to put up points in bunches, honestly. I'm not as worried about this game as I was even a year ago because of the duck and chuck that was the propensity of the Ole Miss offense to play. This year it feels a lot more where you can pick out different receivers and different stuff, and there's the willingness to complete passes under 10 yards, not the duck and chuck type stuff. So we'll see exactly how that goes. And those are the keys to the game, and we'll see exactly how they go. In our final segment, practice insiders say that Ole Miss is looking a lot sharper on the offensive line heading into Kentucky. That would be welcome news after where the Rebels were whipped against the Wildcats last season. What's different this time, and what should you be watching for on Saturday? We'll break all of that down right after this. You know, the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making you ready for the kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you want to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com, the place to place your first $5 bet. You know, most people can't even name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. That is when you don't have the full picture and you'll end up leaving money on the table. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that bridges your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does all the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see it, clear data, visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever even touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. You know, it's pretty interesting to think of because stylistically, it's just a fun way to look at the Kentucky game. The rock fight that they create, how they do it, all of this, it's real similar to the way that Iowa plays football in the Big Ten as far as being a run-based offense, playing really good defense. And it's kind of funny that Mark Stoops is from Iowa, but, you know, I digress on all of that. In the what to watch for area of this game, these are the things that we will be paying attention to see if they happen. This is what I would do, but we'll see exactly how it goes. I do want to see a return of the quick game against Kentucky. That may be their kryptonite. Jet sweeps, running the ball off tackle, running the ball inside like they were doing against Georgia State. Going side to side, it'll wear out a defensive line. It'll force their depth to move, and the safeties in the back, they kind of have to start leaning in the backfield. The quick game will help at that as well, opening up deep shots later on in the football game. Listen, I think that could be Kentucky's kryptonite. If not, if you allow the normal rock fight to develop, you'll find yourself in a 17-15 football game in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's just the way that Kentucky likes to play football and where they're comfortable. You want to make them uncomfortable, move the ball, get first downs, and score touchdowns and put them behind the chains. If you can do all of that, you'll be in good shape. You know, my source inside the Manning Center on number 2 said the offensive line had an increased scrutiny on themselves after some nervy early struggles against Georgia State. And they had a pretty good week of practice from what they told me. Them moving at their assignments, they're going to get better and better as it goes. And if you look at the numbers of what happened in the game, it wasn't that particularly bad to begin with. Basically, a narrative got established that might have been a little bit incorrect. So we'll see how it looks and what can happen. Patrick Kudus, if he has a bigger game, that is a welcome thing. Of Bryson Sanders, those are the 2 weak links from the first game. I think PJ Wilkins got a penalty, and then at the tackles, they were pretty much rock solid in that game. But if Ole Miss can shore up the interior of that offensive line, which has been a problem over the course of the preseason, honestly, they're going to be all right. And from what I was told, they had a really good week of practice. So the offensive line had that scrutiny and they answered the bell whenever they had to do it. Now, the thing that I'm looking at, the special teams seem to be in a really good spot right now. When you look at field goals, Lucas Carneiro is on point. When you look at kickoffs, not one of his kickoffs were even in the field of play. We're talking about kicks through the back of the end zone. So kicking the ball, place kicking the ball is exactly what you want. You look at Oscar Bird at punter. He had like a 59-yard kick that got called back in the game, but he averaged 45 yards on 2 kicks. He's going to be absolutely fine. Special teams wise, Ole Miss is doing really well. Punt return, Harrison Wallace, he was an absolute revelation. 17 yards per punt return over 4 punts. That is exactly what you're looking for. The only thing that we really still have questions about will be the kickoff return, because everybody kicks touchbacks as it sits right now. Now, Traylon Ray, when he plays, that's a name to pay attention to, because we saw Winston Watkins, we saw Deuce Alexander, we saw the starting 3 of Deshaun Stribling, Caden Lee, and of course Harrison Wallace. But Caleb Odom at tight end, and you have Daquan Wright at tight end, and 12-person. They have so many arrows in their quiver that they can use. It's amazing to think about what they can do to the other team. This football team, weapons-wise, they're exactly what you want and exactly what you're looking for. But we'll see exactly how that goes against Kentucky. Now, I'm going to be on the Amazon show on Thursday. I filmed a segment for that today, and they asked me, am I concerned about Kentucky? And I was like, concerned's not the right word. I think Ole Miss is, by factor of touchdowns, better than Kentucky. But nervous after a year ago, it makes a little sense. Nervous is okay. Concerned, no. I'm not gonna deal with concerned in this game. But nervous, I can see it. And that's kind of where we are. Tomorrow we will have Lance Daw with our Know Your Enemy segment talking about the Kentucky Wildcats. Tomorrow night we'll have Vinny Hardy talking about the Kentucky Wildcats, 2 Kentucky people talking over the course of Thursday. Friday we'll have the Why Ole Miss Wins, Michael Katz in the evening, and then we'll have the pregame show with Tom Vanderford before we start our game day routine as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for making August an unbelievable month to where we broke the all-time August record for views for Locked On Ole Miss by like 35,000 views. And that was over last year where Ole Miss went to the playoffs. So I'm pretty jacked up about that as well. Anyway, thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss Podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show. It's completely free. Your support means the world to us. And it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, the ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation a long time. 2-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, and former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local expert. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.